This is a Lantern
Oh,
Valley Studios update, May 1st, 2024.
um, yeah, yeah. So, did we want to go over some of that February related? Yeah, I didn't print mine off, but I have it pretty much memorized, given it's edited recently. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what to say exactly. I mean, overall, it was my first kind of glimpse into the World 9 novel. And yeah, it was interesting. Bud doesn't say a lot of words um, as the main character. And so it's kind of interesting what words she does say, and definitely interesting how it's depicted that there's multiple languages happening and how she hears different words.
mm,
Like most books don't have multiple languages where it's like actually integrated in the story all that much, at least in my experience. Um, so to have it be like she was listening but only got these words out of what was said, or had this understanding but maybe wasn't picking up exactly what was being said. It's kind of cool.
yeah, nice. Yeah, that's so a few neat things there is pretty early on. I think it's the opening chapter. The Verdandi and Ilva, the two kids she's traveling with, are learning a new language, and Fudd's like, "Oh, I'll manage. I can feel what people are saying anyway. I don't need to know the words." And it kind of lingers through the whole story that way. So yeah, there's a lot of mixed languages going on. Yeah.
It's very fantastical. Um, I liked the moment where there was a gross like slug thing that just shows up for a second. I
Right.
think she just says like, well, she says baby, calls it a baby. Um, but yeah, it's like this exposed a flame red sea cucumber. Just kind of a fun thing. Um, yeah, just interesting descriptions about the environment. She scanned the tops of the higher spots in the immediately visible valley. The morning sun would shimmer through the many layers of waterfalls between it and her. Deep orange dawn light already rippled on their tops, making the mist over the jungle's canopies look like crabs blowing clouds. Um,
She already beat that.
yeah. Um, I guess there's a curious part where it made me think, oh, is this Noah? Um, but I don't know for sure if it's Noah, uh, indicating a giant crab shell in the valley. Um, yeah, very specifically, just all the thinking and contemplating and stuff is so like this won't make sense to anyone, but LV style.
Yeah.
So if you eventually read this and you like that, well, you can probably expect that same sort of thing in many of the other novels because of the style. Um, I starred this. I just liked it, I guess, so I'll just read it. She found the qualities in the soil, the plants, animals, structures buried among the terrain, the feelings and breath of the jungle. Beneath all that, like a hum from deep within the earth, a strong and distant change came searching for Fudd as soon as she went searching for it. Fudd had tuned finding the unknown instead of finding a challenge. It had the same effect of leading to new experiences, and the qualities accompanied each other naturally, but it still felt different. Easier, and though not as direct, ease often moved more quickly than effort to the same aim. I just thought that was like, especially the last line.
Ease being faster than effort.
Yeah, and just the way it's worded, like obviously I've heard of that before, but having it it was just, it's all in one clear sentence and like very very summarized and clear.
I think I just wrote stuff like that in my oven of ideas section like 2 days ago. More stuff about effort and ease.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like deep stuff that I don't know. I didn't take too many notes here, and I wouldn't really maybe know what to add anyway to them. But here's another thing I liked on Fevich. It's like the first thing he says, right, is Fevich answered before Fudd finished her own words. The man's stern voice met a spread of lightning from the storm behind him. Each sound of a word shot a bolt in the distance. You're slouching. But that was good. And then yeah, here is where it really like dives into very bizarre interaction that's like on a ethereal plane between the characters. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I still have one more or two more to read here. But yeah, it's cool to read, and yeah, it's kind of what I expected in a way, like it's not outside of what I was considering it could be.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The don't really know what to say about it either.
Yeah.
But yeah, just more of that. It is a like, that it's not out of the realm of expectation. And then it's almost like how far does that realm of uh stuff go? Like if this is it's a scene where Fudd doesn't really interact with anybody, any normal people. No, she's not around like civilization at all and like other stuff. And then it's like, okay, then that's one section. And then it's like, how would she interact in a different circumstance, a similar or a different circumstance that's around a lot of people and all this other stuff. And that's where it almost like you almost need to read a whole book to see the whole spread of it to be able to really
Yeah.
add or understand like the full scope of it. And then also, even if you have the whole scope of it, it won't be out of the realm of what you considered what it could have been.
Yeah.
But then it's now possible for you to
Or think about it and like be like,
yeah.
well, what if here? But just like we talked about in ARN last week, or whatever, just like the name of the wind scene where the character should have said something. I feel like they would have said something. I can't have any of that awareness with one or just a few chapters or whatever.
Even something like you like the part about ease and effort or something. I just wrote a part in my folder of notes about it or whatever. But when reading it at some other point in the story, something like that might come up again, and I don't mention that that kind of shift between challenge and comfort and like all these other things, and you might point out or be able to see like this would be a great time to revisit that concept because I feel like this is what's going on here, and I skip over it, but a second as you reading it and like in that part be like, hey, that's the same theme, same idea, and you don't mention it, but that's going on here, so maybe mention that type of thing again. That's the kind of stuff you would be able to catch if you had the whole scope. Yeah. And then for me, it's just like it's another note in my ovens of ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing you had said to me on reading it that I had a note of is if there's anywhere I could you could add elements or qualities into the scene or and what can be cut and what needs to stay. But I didn't really think too hard about those questions, and I was kind of aware of the element thing for a bit, but then I was like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Seems
I
like
don't even know. That's why it was a question.
yeah. I mean, it seems like it's uh in there well enough that it's not really like it's not like it's lacking really. You know, maybe
Yeah.
it could be more spots, but it's not. It doesn't. It's not necessary.
And then also within the context of the rest of the story too is Fudd wouldn't label the elements by their qualities in their names like fire, earth, air, water, or anything anyway, where the other characters would. So it'd be almost more in character. This is the scene where it's not happening, and every time she's around other people, they do. And so there's that context too that
Right.
changes things. And it almost like when I got Vindaloo to read the very first that just one chapter I just posted on like the writing group, whatever, and he read it and he's like, this section seems really verbose unless it's the way this character talks when they're alone to
Right.
the dog. And it was like, yeah, like he just with that one chapter, and she says like a few sentences, but they're all kind of in a pile and they're all long sentences. And she says it to Jihu, like the one other character, after talking to Ruckus that way. And it's like, seems weird that this character's like this. And I'm like, and then picking out, but maybe that's just who she is. And it's like, yes, unless you have the rest of the context of the whole story, then you would know anyway. And he could pick that up, and you can pick up some other things like Fudd doesn't talk a lot, like
Yeah.
other people, and like all with the context of the rest of the story. That's the kind of stuff that I have to make. Like you saying that for me, it's like okay, so that's at least it's working here.
Yeah.
You can't really know it's working, and I don't know how it's working everywhere else, but that's kind of what I was aiming for loosely. So it's like it's kind of working or not. It's like I don't know, and yeah,
And it's I was just thinking of Vindaloo. That's very much a writer's comment to say like to be so to be aware enough to say well maybe this is why rather than it's just happening and take it out.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I don't like this part. It's too verbose. Instead, it's like unless it's in character, this seems like it could be. Yeah,
yeah.
it's so writer mode.
Yeah.
At the at the moment, the two main things I'm kind of focusing on are cuts of like knowing, like I don't know if there's any distinct parts in that section, but to know when to cut going into a scene, almost like I think there's a quote in kind of writing in movie scripts and stuff is like get in late and get out early. So you get like enter the scene when it's already like in full swing and action, and then you get out of the scene when the scene is for sure done. And like so don't linger on things and don't like have too much build up into scenes. So that kind of cutting to know like Fudd is already in the caves climbing up. And like I don't want to have her wander around with Ruckus and decide I should leave, but just like cut to that, like little things like that. And then the same on the end of chapters to be like, this is where the scene ends. We don't need to have the okay, see you later, screw like that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
And then
wondering that in writing my own book of just how much to include. Like, so I walked into the building or just cut to inside the building. You know,
yeah, like when I went in once I was in the building or something, like
yeah,
skipping over periods. Yeah.
yeah,
The I think some of the biggest cuts coming up are going to be things like the if I especially in World 26, there were a lot of times where Annaba's like talking about music or like characters coming and going, and she's doing like hosting tasks and stuff. I could just skip over it and almost be like, she did this, this, and this, and then ignored the rest because that's kind of her personality, but also to skip over it. So I have like an entire maybe 2,000 word chapter where it's her going to a place and like talking to some people or whatever, but just like having those few lines and almost like a filter out is like just a word I wrote on a thing, like get sloppy and filter it out. Where it's like if these few key lines are things you have to see her say or have to see her interact with these people, then find a place where that could go in with maybe other scenes, and then does the scene even have to be here? And then the other stuff is like, do you actually have to see it, or can I just like have a few sentences and take up this whole chapter and be like, what is the coolest way I could just have the reader know that this happened and just make it cool and kind of infer it, so and that it almost be cooler than seeing the scene. And that kind of cut, I think, is going to cut down the story a lot, but I need to really think about each one of those when I come to them and move on. So yeah, a lot of work there. Also, I think we're supposed to roll a dice today.
Oh,
Yeah, I just thought about that like a few days ago, and I just remembered it now.
um, well, do you know how many, like, we can random number generate?
Yeah, it's less than 15. It might be 14.
Yeah.
Might even be less than that. Oh no, it's less than 10, isn't it? I think it's 10.
Well, I thought it was 10 before.
Yeah. How do I do notepads on this one?
Well, I could do 1 to 10 and
Yeah, and then we'll just count up.
okay. 1, 2, 3, 5.
Go. 5. So 1, 2, 3. We rolled 4 last time. 5 is done. 6 is done. 7 is done. 8 is done. 9 is done. 10 is done. 11, 12 isn't done. Hey, I sent you that little packet a long time ago, and you read the first couple chapters, and you was like, "Where's the rest of it?" It
Yeah.
has Let as the main character.
Yeah.
Finally get to do the rest of it.
Nice.
World 12. So Feline, or AKA
Yeah.
Let, and yeah, and Pelka. So amphibious sea monster thingies.
Nice.
Yeah. Finally get to finish the rest of it. We rolled World 4 last time, but I started cleaning out all of the folders, like just in order kind of thing. And then I went back and was starting to filter out again. And I'm doing that with World 1 again, and kind of like outlining, just almost using that cut thing, like trying to learn how to cut, of being like, uh, Mendez goes to Obarzo's wacky lab, and like, do I need to show her going there? And like, I need to show her in the city around Obarzo's lab and her relation being like a giant among people and stuff and all this stuff. Does it have to be before, or can I just cut to the lab? And like, do I have to show the operation and all this other stuff? She has to know what they're exactly doing, that she's getting like intelligence nano thingies in her and mutations and all this other stuff. I have to show that. Do I have to show that like immediately, or can I cut to something else? And then eventually like cutting all the way, it's like, she if I ignore all that, where's the start place that I could start? So she's going to wake up beside a cruche. So there's actually a rat operating on her instead of Obarzo himself. She's
Right.
being like, what? So like, that's the funniest place for it to start. And it just skips over a lot of other things that I'll have to show, but I
Yeah.
can show it in the scenes following it. And that's just like funny impact. So like that kind of, I'm working with like that mentality, even starting from the outline phase, to like see, then look at World 9 or something and be like, this, if World 1 and the way I'm outlining it now is way better at starting like where it's cool or something, how could what is World 9 compared to this? Like, is it on that level? And then it, yeah, with each story, it's so vastly different. Like with World 9, the intent was they're going to be on a lake for a few chapters where there's like, I want to make this entertaining. If I can make this the start of a book and make it good, then I'm like doing well. And yeah, so like different goals with each
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
but the same thing of like, it's got to be as good as waking up next to a rat that's operating on you instead of the doctor dude that was
Yeah.
supposed to be there. Like, if I can make that beginning as good as this, then I'm doing well. And like, just almost like that cross-referencing the 4 stories. If the finale of this one is slightly better than the others, how do I make each other one as good as this one? Like,
Yeah. Well, we shall see.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think that's good for now for the update, and we'll see you next month.
yeah.